You see, in my years of walking this earth and observing people and their ways, I've come to realize something profound. Intelligence isn't just about how much you know. It's about how you live, how you treat others, and how well you learn from your mistakes. But here's the twist. There are certain unmistakable signs, 6 of them to be exact, that reveal when someone is, well, let's just say, lacking in wisdom. Now, before you roll your eyes or chuckle at the thought of this list, let me tell you why it matters. Spotting these signs isn't about judging others. It's about self-reflection, growth, and yes, avoiding these same pitfalls in our own lives. Together we'll uncover the 6 undeniable signs of a foolish person, each carrying a lesson, a story, and a mirror for us to reflect upon, because the path to wisdom always begins with awareness. Ready to walk this road with me? Let's begin. The first sign. A closed mind is the fortress of ignorance, built brick by brick with fear, pride, and stubbornness. People like this not only reject new ideas, but also block their own path to growth. They live inside a rigid box where everything must follow their familiar rules, and anything different is perceived as a threat. Their confidence often serves as a facade, because true confidence comes from knowing you can't know everything. Take Mark, for example, a department manager at a company I once worked for. Mark was adamant that the old ways of working were best, despite obvious signs that his team was falling behind competitors. When a younger employee suggested using modern project management software to boost efficiency, Mark dismissed it immediately, saying, "We've done it this way for 10 years, it's worked fine." As a result, while other teams in the company advanced, Mark's team stagnated, struggling with outdated processes and declining performance. Instead of acknowledging the problem, Mark blamed his staff, the market, and even luck, but never questioned his own rigid mindset. A closed mind doesn't just block new knowledge, it stifles the growth of everyone around it. Wise people, on the other hand, are not afraid to admit they don't know everything. They remain open to learning. Stoic philosophy reminds us that wisdom isn't about being right all the time, but about the ability to adapt and evolve. If you recognize this tendency in yourself or someone else, remember, embracing innovation not only fosters personal growth, it also builds a more creative and productive environment. Be brave enough to say, "I was wrong, and I want to learn." Only when the walls of stubbornness crumble can true wisdom take root. The second sign, constant blaming. Foolish people are masters of excuses. For them, nothing is ever their fault. A failed project, the market was tough, missed promotion, the boss was biased. But deep down, blaming is a shield, a way to avoid confronting the truth. Yet that same shield becomes a prison, trapping them and preventing any real growth. Take Lisa, for example, an event organizer I once worked with. She was responsible for planning a major conference. When the event failed due to poor attendance, Lisa instantly blamed the marketing team for not promoting it properly. But upon closer look, it turned out Lisa herself had delayed sending the event details, causing the entire marketing campaign to start late. Even then, she continued pointing fingers, refusing to accept her role in the failure. The result? Her colleagues lost trust in her, and she eventually had to step down. Responsibility, though often heavy, is the gateway to growth. Wise people admit their mistakes, not because they enjoy criticism, but because they understand that truth brings opportunities to improve. Stoic philosophy reminds us that mastering life begins with mastering responsibility. If you catch yourself in a cycle of blame, pause and ask, "Have I done everything I could? Could I have done something differently?" Blaming won't change the outcome, but taking responsibility will change you. The third sign, arrogance over humility. Have you ever met someone who constantly tries to prove they're the smartest person in the room? That's the third sign, arrogance. Arrogance isn't confidence, it's insecurity dressed as superiority. It's also the greatest barrier to growth and wisdom. Truly intelligent people listen more than they speak, because they understand that learning never ends. Take Michael, a manager at a large corporation. In meetings, he'd dominate conversations, interrupt colleagues, and mock their ideas. When a project failed, he blamed his team for not understanding his brilliant vision. In truth, It was his arrogance and refusal to listen that led to the failure. When asked to reflect, Michael couldn't find a single reason for what went wrong. His pride had blinded him to every opportunity to improve. Humility, however, isn't about thinking less of yourself. It's about thinking of yourself less. It's about prioritizing collaboration and learning over the need to be right. Stoic wisdom tells us that true growth begins when we open ourselves to new perspectives. If you ever find yourself in arrogance's trap, ask, do I want recognition or do I want to grow? Wisdom doesn't lie in making others feel small. It lies in lifting others up. The wise know that true intelligence emerges when the noise of arrogance falls silent. The fourth sign, lack of empathy. A lack of empathy is one of the clearest signs of ignorance. It's the inability to step into another person's shoes, understand their emotions, or acknowledge their struggles. Without empathy, people live in isolation, disconnected, cold, and often unaware of how deeply they hurt others. Let me tell you about Paul, a colleague who constantly complained about project delays. One day, when a coworker named Susan missed a deadline because her son was seriously ill, Paul publicly criticized her in front of everyone. He cared only about results, not reasons. A year later, when Paul's own mother fell ill, he finally understood the pain he had caused others through his lack of compassion. Lack of empathy not only harms relationships, it shrinks the soul. Stoic philosophy teaches us that wisdom isn't about knowing everything, but about connecting with others deeply and meaningfully. Empathy is not weakness, it's the bridge between wisdom and humanity. When you truly listen to someone without judgment, you gain lessons that books can never teach. If you find empathy hard, start small, listen more. That single act can open your heart and guide you closer to true wisdom. The fifth sign, fear of change. The comfort zone feels safe, but it's a prison disguised as peace. Those who fear change cling to old habits long after they've lost their purpose. Life, my friends, is a river. It bends, flows, and transforms. The wise learn to flow with it. The foolish try to hold the water still only to watch it slip away. Take Michael, a man who spent his life in the same small neighborhood. He knew every street, every face. When his grown children encouraged him to move to a better area, he refused, saying, "I know everyone here. Why should I leave?" But the neighborhood changed. Friends moved away, shops closed, and the familiar faded. Eventually, Michael realized the world moved on, with or without him. When he finally decided to move closer to his children, he discovered comfort, opportunity, and joy he never expected. Fear of change doesn't just hold us back, it robs us of possibility. Stoic wisdom teaches that change is inevitable. Resisting it only causes pain. Ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen, and what's the best? Life never stands still. Either you move with it, or it moves without you. The sixth sign, talking more than listening. We all know someone who insists on having the last word. Interrupting, dominating, never truly hearing anyone else. That's the hallmark of a foolish person. They talk more than they listen. Take John, a father I once knew. At family dinners, he'd talk endlessly about his own experiences, barely letting his kids or wife speak. When his wife suggested ways to improve their finances, he dismissed her ideas instantly. He didn't realize that his constant talking made his family feel unheard and undervalued. Over time, his home grew quiet, not out of peace but out of resignation. Listening isn't passive, it's an act of respect and awareness. Stoic philosophy reminds us that silence leads to understanding, while endless talking leads only to noise. If you see yourself in John's story, change now. Next time someone speaks, really listen. Don't just wait for your turn to talk. When you listen deeply, you build love, trust, and connection. Remember, the wise listen, the foolish only speak. In conclusion, we've walked through the 6 signs of foolishness. But before you start wondering, am I foolish? Hold on. The truth is, all of us at some point have displayed one or more of these traits. Maybe we've been arrogant, too comfortable, or guilty of talking more than we listen. Here's the real lesson. Recognizing these signs isn't about criticism, it's about transformation. Stoic philosophy reminds us that wisdom doesn't come from being perfect, but from being willing to learn, admit, and evolve. Each foolish habit you notice in yourself is actually a gift. an invitation to become wiser. So step out of your comfort zone, listen more, blame less, embrace change. This journey isn't for the perfect, it's for the brave, those who can look in the mirror and say, I can do better. Remember, foolishness is temporary, but wisdom is a lifelong journey, and on that journey, you are not alone. Keep growing. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can continue exploring meaningful lessons together. Thank you for watching.